Hi folks, Kyle coming at you with a video about making a quiz on SuperQuiz to use as a part of formative assessment. So I have a quiz here that I gave many years ago in a history class, and it's on the age of enlightenment. It has 20 multiple choice questions with 4 distractors each question, and then 3 different extended response questions. I've decided in my quiz that I'm going to divide it into 2 parts. I'm going to give and this is going to be a formative assessment, so in my classes this would be a low stakes quiz. Maybe, quizzes in general would never account in my classes for any more than 10% of the grade. And this is just one of many that I would have given. So this is a fairly low stakes quiz. I want to know whether students in pursuing a unit on the Enlightenment are familiar with influential enlightened thinkers and their ideas, which is one topic on the quiz. And then the other topic is just some key characteristics of enlightened thought. So do the students in my classes kind of know their way around some of the bits and pieces of intellectual capital that they need, and I think they need, in order to be able to have deeper class discussions and to be able to analyze some of the key questions that I'm going to be giving them in the future on this during this unit. So I've decided I want to do a formative quiz on the 20 multiple choice questions, and then I'm probably going to do some sort of in-class writing assignment as a practice on some of these extended response questions. So right now I'm just really going to focus on the multiple choice bit. So when I use SuperQuiz, the first thing that I want to do is I want to turn this into a Google form document. And there's not an easy way to import the information on a Word document or a Google Doc into Forms, but with the cut and paste function, it's actually not too bad. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what that looks like. I'm going to just go into a folder, create a new Google form, and I'm going to make sure that it's formatted and set up the way that I want. If we come up here to the paint, for example, I can change the color, or I could change the background of this. I'll do, I don't know, let's see if I can find some bookshelves or something for a history class. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to choose this. It looks like a decent history format. And then once I have a theme kind of for the form, it's a minor thing, I'm going to go to Settings, and in order for SuperQuiz to work and the autocorrect function of SuperQuiz to work, I have to make sure that my students are restricted to their Cairo American College users. I want to collect their email addresses, and I want to limit them to only one response. So in other words, that they can't respond twice to the same question and go back and make edits. Perhaps they can retake this quiz at a later date for me, but I don't want them to do that in one sitting. SuperQuiz is already going to send them an email, and so I don't need Forms to send them another email, so I'm going to uncheck mark that. I don't want students to be able to edit after they submit, and because they're going to see their summary of their responses already through SuperQuiz, I don't necessarily need Forms to duplicate that effort. So if you're going to use SuperQuiz, we only want to make sure that the top 3 of these settings are checked. Now another little bit too that I found out in working with SuperQuiz is we don't actually even want to call this a quiz. That would be for with the use of the auto function of forms, an autocorrect function of forms. SuperQuiz is a little bit better because it can actually email specific feedback to students, and that's something that this form quiz settings cannot do. So I'm just going to keep it general. I'm not going to mess with the presentation function or the quiz function in Forms. All I need to do is to make sure that these top 3 checkmark boxes are clicked, and then I'm going to save, and then I'm going to be ready to create my quiz. So we're going to give this a title. Again, this is going to be the Enlightenment quiz. and I'm not going to bother with a form description. And here for my first question, I'll go ahead and say I want it to be multiple choice. That's great. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to simply copy and paste. And this isn't the cleanest thing in the world, but it does at least get the question down, and then once the question is down, I can just simply take these and put them into one of my options. And then I'll take B, C, and D. And I know that this seems a little bit time consuming, but this is kind of a front-end loaded strategy. And this would be for those of you that really want to use these functions, the autocorrect functions in SuperQuiz as a piece of formative assessment. And so I would do this for the next 19 questions in my quiz, and I'm going to go ahead and finish that and not bore you with those details. But when we come back for the next part of this video, I'm going to show you how to set up SuperQuiz based on this form. Okay, I've finished my quiz. It took a little bit of time, but again, I've told you that if you're committed to using SuperQuiz, it is a very front-end loaded strategy. Once you've got these forms created, then you can use them the next year and the next year and so on and so forth, and perhaps even differentiate these assessments as time goes on, and certainly it's easy to change questions over time as well. So the next thing, once I've finished the quiz and I've got all 20 questions done here, I want to make sure that all of my questions I have clicked to required. And again, I've gone through and checked all of those, so I'm not going to bore you with that. You'll actually see whether that's the case too with a red asterisk next to each of the questions. Then, if I'm using the newest version of Google Forms, I'm going to click the responses here. And this is easy to miss. I need to click this little icon here to create the spreadsheet that's associated with this quiz. That's different in the old version of Forms, something I don't like. It's almost so subtle that you miss it. So I want to create the spreadsheet. I'm going to call it the same thing so that in my Google Drive, the form and then the associated spreadsheet are right next to one another in terms of the way that I'm organizing my files. So I'm going to create that. And I see here that it's created, the spreadsheet associated with the forms. If I look over here in SuperQuiz, in this particular folder, I see the Enlightenment quiz. There's the form itself, and then what just popped up here is the associated responses. So it's in this spreadsheet that I'm going to now do the important work for SuperQuiz. I've already set up my form the way I want, and now I have to set up the spreadsheet the way that I want it to look. So once I've created the spreadsheet and it looks the way I want it to look, I am going to set up SuperQuiz. I've already downloaded it, but if you hadn't, you can go to add-ons and then get add-ons. You'll click this button. If you don't have SuperQuiz, you would type SuperQuiz in this box, and then you would search. It would come up, and then you would download it just as you would a normal extension. It takes a few seconds. I've already downloaded it, and I see that it is permanently then resident in add-ons whenever I'm in a sheet, and I'll click SuperQuiz and I want to get started. what we're going to see then is once I hit the Get Started button, a menu pops up over here, and it's going to give me some pretty good information. You see I scroll up and down about how to further set my form up. So it says in the first part of my setup checklist that the tab on my sheet must be Form Responses 1, and it is. And then it says the correct answers to your questions should be entered in row 2. Well, I haven't done that yet, but I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. And then the third bit of setup is it says the first 4 columns must be arranged like this: timestamp, email, what is your name, and who is your teacher. Well, you can see that I'm missing 2 of those questions. So I'm going to have to then go back to my form and add a question saying what is your name, and another one to say who is your teacher. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to go back to questions, and I'm going to add a question. I'm going to have to drag it all the way to the top. But the first question I'm going to ask is what is your name? Okay, so there it is. And I need to make this a short answer, so I'm going to. And then the next question I want to add is who is teacher? Now, if this is a quiz that's you only have one section of a class, then under multiple choice option 1, you can just put your name. But if you're sharing this quiz and among several teachers, you can enter in as many teachers as you would want. I need to make this required. I need to make this required. And then that is saved. And then we're going to have to refresh our sheet here, and then we might have to, depending on where it's put those 2 answer columns, probably at the very end, I'm going to have to move those. So I'm going to move the what is your name over to here, and then I'm going to go find who is your teacher, and I'm going to move it to the 4th column. Okay, and then if I want to resize those, I can. I'm not going to right now. So I'm going to go back to add-on. I'm going to go get Super Quiz, back to main menu, and I can see now then that timestamp column 1, yep, username column 2, and that's because I've allowed Google Forms in settings to collect email addresses. What is your name here, and who is your teacher? Super Quiz has to be set up this way or it won't run properly. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to then scroll down, and I'm going to ask Super Quiz to create tabs. Make sure you scroll this checklist down to find create tabs. So I'm going to allow it then to create the rest of the tabs that's going to enable Super Quiz to do its thing. So you can see now that down here a new set of tabs is being created. And that doesn't take a tremendous amount of time, but what I'm going to do is we're going to let Super Quiz do its thing, but I want to show you the results of another quiz that I have created. Oh, we can go ahead and hit next now that this is successful, just to show you what Super Quiz can do. So this is a quiz that I gave earlier. These are my response forms, and you can see that this is the timestamp, username, what is your name, and who's your teacher, and then these are the questions that I ask on this basic quiz. Visually, I can see the name of the students and whether they have gotten the questions right or wrong. Correct answers will appear in turquoise, and incorrect answers will appear in white with a 0. I can see if we were sharing classes among 2 or 3 or 4 teachers, the teacher results here in terms of what percentage of the class correctly responded to which question. I can get a question by question account of which student has missed what question. And this one's great. This is when I would actually program Super Quiz to give me specific and tailored feedback. One of the things we have discovered in using Super Quiz is that this page, this tab, Auto Feedback Configuration, must be filled out if you're going to get these subsequent tabs to work correctly. So I would encourage you to spend a little bit of time to fill this out, and I'm going to show you that in the last part of this video. Then we get the response feedback, and this is actually the feedback that's going to be emailed to each individual student. So Mahmoud Kotob took the quiz. He took it on August 31st, and when he receives the email from me, individualized, that is actually what I'm circling now with my cursor, is the text that he's going to be emailed. And it's individualized based on how he performed on the quiz questions. If I want a topic score breakdown, this quiz, for example, only had 2 topics, music and Ohio. I can take a look at the student-by-student topic breakdown. I can see, for example, that Mahmoud Abdelbaki did quite well on the music portion, and I can see that Alex Yoon did quite well on the Ohio portion of the quiz. Once that happens, I can go to the document and email configuration. As soon as all the kids have finished taking the quiz, I would hit this button here, Create Docs and Emails, and then it would slowly start to send this individualized feedback back to students, which is the great function about Super Quiz. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is create the key to our quiz, and to do that we will go to the eye icon up here. It'll appear, and we're going to go ahead and enter in all the information here and all of the correct responses to the quiz. And once we do that, that's going to be our very first entry into our spreadsheet. It will go on the second line of our spreadsheet here. So you can see this is a quiz that I previously did on August 31st, and I've entered in the correct responses there. And those are the responses that students' work will be judged against. If you're using multiple choice or drop down, fairly easy. One of the things that those of us that have been experimenting with have experienced is that if you do a short answer, very, very short answer, or a one-word answer, the student's answer has to match up exactly as it's been entered by the teacher in the second line of the spreadsheet here. So a couple of mistakes that we made, if the teacher had a capital L here in Leon Bridges and then the kid actually put Leon Bridges in small letter, Super Quiz will mark that as incorrect. Likewise, if I were to have put up here a period after Leon Bridges in the key, and a student didn't enter in a period after Leon Bridges, even if they got the capitalization correct, it would appear as wrong, and Super Quiz would mark it accordingly. So if you're going to use short answer or one-word response answers in Super Quiz, you just got to be pretty careful and very cognizant that Super Quiz is very much case sensitive. So my advice to you would be to stick with multiple choice and drop down questions. Again, these are formative assessments, and I'm not a big fan personally of multiple choice questions, but they do have a place, and I think formative assessment really is that place. The only other thing that I really want to talk about is this one tab here in the Super Quiz. Again, now we are back in the sheet and the spreadsheet where students are going to be responding. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th tab down is called Auto Feedback Configuration. And this is where you're actually going to program in the feedback that ultimately gets emailed to each individual student. Now on my quiz, remember I had 20 questions, and I had divided the quiz up into two sections, people and ideas, and enlightenment characteristics. And I had 12 questions associated with people and ideas, that topic, and I had 8 questions associated with enlightenment characteristics. You really have to organize your quizzes into topics if you have multiple topics. If you don't, it doesn't matter. You're just going to have one topic, but you are going to have to give it a name. But you'll have to organize your quiz into multiple topics and keep track of which questions are associated with each individual topics, and those have to be presented on the quiz in order. So I know, for example, my first 12 questions on the actual form itself were all associated with people and ideas. The final 8 questions on my form were associated with enlightenment characteristics. So on this auto feedback configuration, you are instructed to list the topics that you're assessing and the associated number of questions along with each topic. Now, that's this set of boxes. This next set of boxes is, again, associated with topic 1, which is people and ideas. If students miss one or more of these 12 questions, they are going to get this specific feedback from me, and that's something that I enter in here. I can type in as much as I want, right? But here, because my topics have been associated with people ideas, if students miss one or more questions, the specific feedback I give them via email is review information on Rousseau, Montesquieu, the philosophes, Locke, Hobbes, Newton, Jefferson, and the Enlightened monarchs. Okay, that's the feedback that they get. The second topic here is Enlightenment characteristics, and again, if students miss one or more of these 8 questions, they're going to get this set of feedback as well. It says you missed a few questions on the big ideas associated with the Enlightenment. Maybe you focused too closely on the details and missed the bigger picture. Okay, so you will have to fill in this topic as well, or this set of boxes as well, to give students specific feedback. If you have fewer than 2 topics, then you just leave these areas blank. Over here you put blank, blank, 0, 0. Again, I just left these blank, that's fine. Now we're going to continue to move over. Okay, this is a question now that I can attach to each topic if students miss one or more questions. So if they miss some questions on people and ideas, the question that I'm going to ask, and maybe they can buy back credit if they answer this question, or maybe it's just for their improvement. Take each philosopher specifically mentioned in the feedback above these and write one sentence about his biggest accomplishment. Fine. Second topic was Enlightenment characteristics. Student missed one or more questions, and the question then that they get emailed to them is to say, hey, make a diagram or a list of the major ideas associated with the Enlightenment. This is the cool part. If a student gets 100%, and only if they get 100%, then they will see this question. And this is to differentiate higher to the higher level kids that really ace formative assessments. And so here I say, hey, you got 100%. Using a medium of your choice. Jot down a few thoughts in response to the following question. Here's the question. Which is the more compelling construct? The Enlightenment shaping individuals or individuals shaping the Enlightenment? Explain your position. That's actually one of the main themes of my history course. Okay. The only other thing that you want to take a look at here is what grade is emailed to students based on these percentage bands. Now, it's formative assessment, so I would encourage you against the A through F. Again, I want my formative assessments to be no stakes or low stakes. So probably what I'm going to write in here instead of alpha grade is did not take. If they got a 0%, very much struggling. And then I'll say struggling, and then I'll say below expectations, meeting expectations, and then exceeding expectations. Okay, whatever verbiage you want to put in there. But for me, if this is a formative assessment, it makes sense to move away from the alpha marks A through F and write in something more along the lines of these kinds of descriptions about how students are performing versus expectations or standards or whatever. So that's about it for me. This is Bean Super Quiz. If you're interested in setting this up and using it, please feel free to get a hold of me, because it's not the easiest setup in the world, although I would argue that it's not super difficult, but you know, some trial and error may be necessary, and that's one of the reasons that I'm here to kind of guide you through that process. Happy to help, and I think this is a super application to help us deliver more specific and incisive formative feedback. Hey, thanks for watching.